Hey everybody, so here's my video of the theory of evolution. A scientific theory is a well-substantiated explanation of some aspect of the natural world based on a body of facts that have been repeatedly confirmed through observation and experiment. So that means people have done all kinds of tests and experiments, and everything supports this explanation of the natural world. So theories, not just a guess, it's not just a prediction, it's very well supported by research. And the main thing is that it's an explanation of laws or facts. So a law is like when you can basically make a science or a mathematical formula for something. So it's something like when temperature goes up, pressure goes up, would be a scientific law. Or a fact is just something that you know to be true, you can observe it. So fact is that evolution happens, but a theory is an explanation of how that happens. The scientific theory is testable. It's been tested many, many times, and everything has shown it to be true. But it may change as new evidence is discovered. So the more we learn about the world, the more we might add to that theory when we learn new things about it. Some examples of cell theory some examples are cell theory, which explains that all organisms are made of cells. Germ theory, which explains that many diseases are caused by microorganisms like bacteria. Or atomic theory, which explains that matter is made of discrete units called atoms. So something like atomic theory, everybody knows that's true. It's very testable, but it has changed as new evidence is discovered. So we went from thinking that an atom was just one single thing to realizing that there's different subatomic particles. And then now we're learning about all the different like subatomic particles that go into making up an atom. So atomic theory remains true, although new discoveries might help us explain it even better. Evolution is change in the characteristics of populations over successive generations. So that means that a population of any type of organisms, it might be a population of giraffes, a population of humans, a population of bacteria, that's a group of organisms of the same species. They all have different characteristics, and that's depending on the traits that we all have, which are due to the proteins, right? Which are due at the basic level with our DNA. So DNA in every organism is unique, and so that makes populations that have certain characteristics, even though the individuals within them are all unique. And if the population changes over time, that's what evolution is. So here's an example of bacteria. This is a population of bacteria. A few of the individuals are resistant to antibiotics, but most of them are not. So here we have a population with just a few antibiotic resistant and mostly non-antibiotic resistant. But if you add antibiotics to their environment, then most of that population that's not antibiotic resistant is going to die off. And what you're going to end up with is a population that's almost entirely antibiotic resistant. So this is a change in the characteristic of that population over multiple generations. Darwin's theory of evolution is a way to explain how evolution happens through natural selection. And so this is the term survival of the fittest, where the organisms that have better traits that are well suited to their environment, they're going to live longer and pass on more of their genes to their kids. So basically those best characteristics survive in a population, and the characteristics that maybe aren't so good, they tend to disappear. So this is the theory of evolution. It's explaining how evolution happens. So this is still a controversial issue. You'll see it in the news, you'll see movies, you see debates about it, and the reason it still encounters so much opposition today is generally due to religion. It's not due to anything wrong with the science. It just has to do with what people choose to believe. But they don't have to be conflicting factors. So a lot of people take the view that science tells you how something happens, and your faith is responsible for explaining why that happens. And these two can overlap. And so while some people may feel that science and religion can't get along, I think for the most part it's not true. I think they can complement each other very well. But in this class we're just going to focus on the how of evolution, so the mechanics of how it actually happens, and then the why can be left up to you. For evolution to happen, there has to be heritable genetic variation within a population. So for instance, in this population of cats, there's variation in the color of the fur. And that color, since it can be passed down to potential future kitties, then that means it's heritable. So heritable genetic variation right here. So another example of that is eye color. There's lots of variation in eye color among human populations. Some people have blue, some have brown, some have green, some might have a mixture. So this variation is caused by differences in the DNA. But what causes DNA to change? Well, that is due to either genetic recombination due to meiosis. So this is crossing over, which we learned about how in meiosis the homologous chromosomes will meet up in the middle of the cell and swap sections of genes. So that can come up with new genetic combinations, making kids that are different from the parents. So that's one way that DNA can change. And then two other ways DNA can change are due to mutations, some from DNA replication. The process of DNA replication is normally very, very, very reliable, but every once in a while mistakes do get made, making DNA that is different than what it used to be. And then also damage from mutagens like radiation or toxins that can damage the DNA in a cell and cause maybe part of a chromosome to break off, and then it might get attached where it shouldn't be, or things might get swapped around. So anything that changes DNA is a source of genetic variation. So that's what makes everybody unique and different. So take a minute to think about how this, meaning this unit of evolution, how it connects with what you already know. What do you already know about evolution? What do you already know about traits and genes? And how does the structure of DNA and proteins fit into the topic of evolution? Think about any questions you have that you might want to ask me later. Write them down. And then here's an overview of the assignment that we did in class. If you weren't here, come check with me, but it's on Canvas. So read one of the articles about a source of genetic variation, and then create a visual model, so either a drawing or paper cutouts or some other way of showing how one of these three things causes variation in the DNA. So changes in a chromosome due to environmental damage, that's going to make DNA that's different from the parent's DNA. Or errors in replication, you're going to end up with DNA that's different. Or crossing over in meiosis will cause DNA that is now different. So all of those three things are ways we get kids with DNA that's slightly different from that of their parents. So after you've read your article and made your model, check in with me.